Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about a subject that so many of us can relate to right now, and that's the idea of exhaustion. So many people are feeling exhausted right now, and that's simply because, 2020 has hit us with a lot to think about, a lot to process, a lot to change. It's making us consider what our ideologies are. It's making us question how we think about things. It's making us reassess what our future is. And so how could exhaustion be showing up for you is something that we're going to talk about today. What does that mean for you in your career or your business? And we're also going to explore how you can shift or what you can do to shift from this moment so that you can use the momentum of this time and create a flow that's working for you and the people around you, whether that be your team, whether that be your employer, whether that be your customers, whoever it is that's around you. How can you use the momentum of what's going by using your own flow to make sure that you're contributing to the things that elevate you and the people around you, as well as help you extend and accelerate the way that you contribute to society and elevate your ideologies so that they're serving you and everybody else equally, because that's the theme of 2020. 2020 is inviting us to reassess. So, how could exhaustion be showing up for you? I have been speaking with lots of people who own businesses and people who are professionals in the coffee industry, and something that everybody keeps saying is, I didn't see 2020 coming, I didn't prepare for it, and I'm just overwhelmed. And the way that overwhelm is showing up for most people is in ways of anxiety, stress, an inability to sleep, overthinking everything, heightened emotions, other ways not being able to eat, eating too much drinking of alcohol and other substance abuses in a way to deal with the pain that's going on. And so all of these are incredibly understandable ways of managing with the extraordinary stress that 2020 is showing all of us. It's one thing to, when you're opening a business and you know that there's going to be overwhelming stress, or you're going to be starting a new job and you know that there's going to be overwhelming stress. Whole different thing though when a pandemic and mass protests across the world and economic destruction and all of these things, or economic collapse is the better term for me to use. All of these things have all shown up in the first half of 2020. Now, what does that do? It causes you to, for some people, it's caused them to just simply shut down. Now, that's an element of exhaustion. You've pushed yourself to the brink so hard that the only mechanism you have left is to just simply shut down and switch off from everything and not process or deal with anything that's going on. I remember when I was doing my associate diploma in counseling, and we were talking about the idea of how people deal with stress. It became very profound to me that people would just not look at things head on, and they would just ignore things. And that was, I was 21 when I started studying a lot of this stuff, and I came to realize at that time, hey Lee, you've got to have empathy for the way that people process different levels of stress and different ways of taking that information and being able to either compartmentalize it or cut it down into little parts so that they can process it quickly in those tiniest little parts, not even quickly at all. And that was really important. That was a really important growth mechanism for me, is I need to have empathy for everybody when it comes to the way that they deal with stress and the way that they need to sometimes not deal with stress as a simple coping mechanism of survival. And it's important for you to understand that the way that you deal with stress is going to determine how quickly you're going to take to get to a level of exhaustion. I'm seeing a lot online of people hammering at people that must comply. You must comply with the way that I want you to think, is what I'm hearing a lot of online. Whether it's said obviously or whether it's been a little bit more under the radar and veiled. Well, if that's the way that you feel that you're being attacked and you must comply and you must do this and you must do that, there's one thing to be said for the people who are doing it, and what are you trying to achieve by getting people to do that rather than inviting people to a conversation. But if you're on the receiving end of that, that gets brutal very quickly. And all it does is it invites you to make one of two decisions. I'm either going to defend myself and respond with more attacks, or I'm going to shut down. Because there's nothing really for you to listen to when somebody says you must comply with what I'm requiring you to do. It's not. They're not inviting you into something where you can discuss. That is a command, and you're going to do one of two things. The expectations that are being put on all of us to have the immediate answers right now are causing more elements of exhaustion. So not only are we being hit with a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't see coming, pandemic and the protests and the economic destruction, collapse, etc., but now we're being required to have the answers to everything immediately, and if we don't, we're going to get cancelled. And for some people, it's like, oh shit! Like, how do I get through this moment? And for some people, the response is, I'm just going to stop everything for a second and just do nothing. For other people, it's, I'm going to be silent and I'm going to listen to what's going on and try and find some solutions that make sense. Others are saying, I'm going to engage in conversation. I'm going to find people who know what the fuck they're talking about, and I'm going to engage in that and learn. And there are other ways to deal with it. But the important thing to understand is that you have options, and your number one job is, how do I make this manageable for me right now while also being respectful to what this moment is calling for us to do? An example of something that would be disrespectful in this moment would be in my as a business owner, and this is my opinion. This is not me telling you what to do. This is in my opinion. If you just decided to say nothing, address nothing, not have conversations about the Black Lives Matter movement right now. So I'm not saying you must have public discussions. It's helpful to have public discussions. It's helpful for you to explore these issues publicly. You don't have to, though. But if you're not having those conversations in amongst your teams, in amongst your colleagues, in amongst your employees, if you're not doing anything to address this moment in history, well, what it would suggest is that you have decided that your role in this moment in history will be to check the fuck out, and you don't care what's going on. Now, if you're doing that because you're tired from a pandemic, I'm not going to say that I understand, but you do you. Because the two things both require attention right now if you are somebody who is an empathetic person, and you need to be empathetic to this situation. You, at the very least, even if you disagree with what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, at the very least, for you to be an engaged member of our industry, of your own community even, you should be engaging in a discussion where you can help yourself at least try and understand more of what's going on. There wouldn't be a whole fucking country up in arms about something that didn't have, I think it's got a lot of truth to it, me personally, And a lot of people think it's got a lot of truth to it. But if you're somebody who's listening to this and you don't understand any of it, please consider that a lot of people wouldn't be making this big a deal out of something if there wasn't substance to it. If your exhaustion is coming from your denial of what's happening, become aware of that. Denying what's happening right now may be the thing that's leading to your exhaustion. Lean into the conversation. Lean into what people are talking about right now. And just before I wrap up, how do we use this moment to reflect and to set up for shifting? All right. My go-to for all of this is use it as an opportunity to build deeper relationships in your community. People want to engage in conversation. Find people who want to really and truly engage in conversation, not just hear themselves talk. Find people in your community online who want to invite you into a dialogue. Not people that agree with you. Find people that agree with you, sure, but don't go looking just for people that agree with you. Go looking for people who can help you in conversation. I had somebody come to me and ask if they could coach me in starting my journey with regards to my relationship with my white fragility. I had another person contact me and ask me if they could offer to coach me, there's no other way to put it, to coach me into the journey of self-awareness. Now listen, if you're going and looking to help people do things like that, you should at the very least know whether what you're offering them is something that is real or not. I'm not white, people. I keep telling you that, and you keep coming at me with it. And look, I say people, but it's not people who listen to this podcast that are coming at me saying, let me help you build a relationship with your white fragility. I'm not white. Also, very clearly, if you've listened to this podcast, you'd know how self-aware I am. It's like the thing I spend most of my life doing day and night is getting self-aware. So when you are going to build relationships with people and engage in conversation with people, be sure that you're picking your audience correctly. Be sure that you are engaging with people that not only you can teach, you shouldn't be going out to teach people anything right now. Right now is a moment for learning and growing and listening. This, if we use this moment in history correctly, and I'm confident that we will eventually get there, but if we use this moment correctly, what could be the result is something truly fantastic. This is a moment where we could evolve from this as more aware as a collective, more empathetic towards each other, more caring towards each other, and more able to question our own ideologies so that we are less stubborn and more flexible with growth. If you are experiencing exhaustion right now, tap out when you need to tap out, but don't disengage totally. Do what you need to do to get some rest. If it means listening to the news just once a day or just not at all today. If it means instead of listening to the news, I'm going to go and read a blog about what's going on with the coffee value chain. Disengaging totally isn't going to help. It's about finding a flow and a rhythm to your growth that works for you. I often say friction is important in life. You need friction. Too much friction will break you. So find the sweet spot in where the amount of friction that you can cope with is, and then just go a little higher and push yourself just that little bit harder, but not too hard. Peace on peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.